Why was the Great Wall of China really built? Hi everyone. Number 10. To keep out the Mongols. The most popular explanation for why the Great Wall of China was built is to keep the Mongols out. While the Great Wall of China is mostly known as a defensive structure, it also served an important function as a way to keep the Chinese people inside China. Another reason why the Great Wall of China was built was to keep bandits and robbers out of the country. Throughout this time, it has served many purposes, one of which was to stop runaway slaves. The primary purpose of the Great Wall of China was to protect the northern borders of the country. Now, China has always been a large and powerful empire, and as such, the Great Wall of China is not just a physical structure, but also a symbol of the country's rich history and culture. One of the ways in which the wall served the Chinese people was by keeping their customs and traditions safe from outside influences. The western regions were a group of states and kingdoms that were located to the west of China. In ancient times, capital city was the seat of the emperor's power and the center of the country's political, economic, and cultural life. Do you think the Great Wall of China was worth it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time. Remember to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any ancient history updates. To subscribe, it was also a major hub for trade and commerce, and as such, it was an important strategic objective for any enemy of the state. The Great Wall of China provided an important line of defense against potential invaders by creating a physical barrier that was difficult to breach. The wall also served as a way to monitor and control access to the capital city. The Chinese government was able to keep track of who was entering and exiting the city and respond quickly to any potential threats. Additionally, the wall also helped to prevent bandits and robbers from entering the city and stealing valuable goods. This was especially important during times of war, when the capital city was at risk of being attacked. The Great Wall of China helped to ensure the safety and security of the capital city and the people who lived there. It was an important part of the country's defense system and played a key role in protecting the emperor's power and authority. During the Han Dynasty, the western regions were a valuable source of resources and trade. However, the regions were also known for being unruly and difficult to control. The local rulers were often in conflict with each other and were constantly trying to expand their territory. This was a problem for the Chinese emperors because they wanted to maintain control over the western regions so they could continue to benefit from the trade and resources that they had to offer. The Great Wall of China helped to keep the western regions in check by providing a physical barrier between China and the unruly states. The wall also served as a way to monitor and control trade with the western regions. The Chinese government was able to collect taxes on goods and make sure that the trade was conducted fairly. This helped to ensure that the western regions remained a valuable asset for the Chinese people and that they continued to benefit from trade with the outside world. In the ancient world, there was a lot of cultural exchange between China and the outside world. However, this also meant that Chinese customs and culture were at risk of being lost or altered. The Great Wall acted as a buffer between China and the outside world, allowing the Chinese people to maintain their unique customs and traditions. Additionally, the wall also helped to preserve the Chinese language and way of life. By limiting contact with other cultures, the Chinese people were able to keep their language pure and their traditions intact. This was especially important during times of war, when the Chinese emperors wanted to keep their enemies from learning about their culture and customs. The wall helped to ensure that the Chinese way of life remained hidden from prying eyes. It has often been targeted by invaders from the north. It was named the Silk Road because silk was one of the most valuable commodities that was traded along the routes. The Silk Road was very important for China because it allowed the country to trade with other cultures and get access to resources that were not available in China. However, the Silk Road was also a dangerous place to travel. There were many bandits and robbers along the routes, and traders often had to pass through areas that were controlled by hostile tribes. The Great Wall of China protected the Silk Road by providing a safe passageway for traders to travel along. The wall also helped to prevent hostile tribes from attacking traders and stealing their goods. Additionally, the wall also served as a way to monitor and regulate trade along the Silk Road. The Chinese government was able to collect taxes on goods and make sure that the trade was conducted fairly. This helped to ensure that the Silk Road remained a profitable venture for the Chinese people and that they continued to benefit from trade with the outside world. In ancient times, the nomadic tribes of the Eurasian steppe were a constant threat to China's security. These tribes were fierce warriors who were skilled in horseback riding and archery. They would often raid Chinese settlements and steal their goods. The Great Wall was built to prevent this from happening by creating a physical barrier between China and the nomadic tribes. The wall was also equipped with towers and battlements, which allowed soldiers to defend the Chinese people from the invaders. Additionally, the wall also served as a way to monitor and control trade with the outside world. By having a wall along the northern borders, the Chinese government was able to keep track of who was coming into and out of the country. This was important for several reasons. First, it helped to prevent potential enemies from entering China undetected. Second, it allowed the Chinese government to collect taxes on trade goods. Third, it helped to ensure that the Chinese people were not exposed. Foreign idea that could potentially cause unrest. In ancient China, slavery was a common practice, and there were a significant number of enslaved people in the country. 5. To keep Christianity out. While the Great Wall of China was primarily built for defensive and protective purposes, it also played a role in keeping Christianity out of China. The 7th century AD, the Tang Dynasty was in full swing and was considered a golden age in Chinese history. During this time, Buddhism was the dominant religion in China, and the Chinese emperors were generally tolerant of other faiths. However, as the centuries passed, the popularity of Buddhism began to decline, and the emperors became less tolerant of other religions, especially Christianity. In the 17th century, the last Ming emperor, Chongzhen, ordered the destruction of many Christian churches and the execution of many Christians. He also ordered the construction of the Great Wall to be strengthened, which some historians believe was done in part to prevent Christians from entering China. This was because missionaries often traveled long distances to spread the great faith, and the Great Wall would have made it more difficult for them to do so. Additionally, the wall also served as a physical manifestation of the Chinese emperor's power and authority. By building such a massive structure, the emperors were able to display their strength and dominance to both the Chinese people and the outside world. Some of these slaves were able to escape their captors and flee to safety over the Great Wall. For the Chinese authorities, it was important to prevent this from happening, since it represented a loss of property. When a slave escaped, their owner would often have to pay a hefty ransom to get them back. By building the Great Wall, the Chinese government was able to create a physical barrier that made it more difficult for slaves to escape. This in turn helped to reduce the number of runaway slaves and maintain order within the country. It should be noted that the Great Wall was not built solely for this purpose, but it was one of the factors that contributed to its construction. The wall also served other important functions, such as protecting against foreign invaders and helping to regulate trade. However, the impact that it had on reducing the number of runaway slaves should not be overlooked. In the ancient world, there was a lot of trade going on between China and the outside world. And with all of this trade came the risk of robbery. Bandits and robbers would often attack merchants and their goods, which not only resulted in the loss of valuable items, but also put the merchants' lives at risk. The Great Wall of China provided a much safer way to transport goods and keep them protected from thieves. By building the wall, the Chinese government was able to create a safe passageway for merchants so they could travel freely throughout the country without fear of being robbed. This in turn helped to boost trade and the economy of China. Furthermore, the wall also served as a way to prevent enemies from sneaking into China and starting rebellions or spreading chaos. By keeping unwanted people out, the Chinese government was able to maintain order and stability within its borders. In the ancient world, there was no such thing as a passport or border control. So if you wanted to leave China, all you had to do was walk through one of the many mountain passes along the northern borders. The Great Wall made this much more difficult and discouraged people from leaving the country. This was especially important during times of war when the Chinese emperors did and want their enemies to be able to sneak across the border and attack them. By making it much more difficult for people to leave China, the Great Wall helped to keep the country safe. Additionally, the wall also served as a physical manifestation of the power of the Chinese emperors. By building such a massive structure, the emperors were able to show the Chinese people just how strong and capable their ruler was. This in turn helped to maintain the authority of the emperors and keep the Chinese people under their control. This is because the Mongols were one of the greatest threats to the Chinese throughout history. They had invaded and conquered much of the country in the late 12th century. But this reason isn't entirely accurate, because the construction of the Great Wall actually predates the Mongol Empire by several centuries. In fact, several different states built walls to keep the Mongols out before the empire was even formed. So while the Great Wall may have been further expanded after the Mongols rose to power, it wasn't created solely for that purpose. It's believed that the initial construction of the wall was started around 700 BCE by the state of Qin. Later, various other states like Zhao, Wei, Yan, and Chu also built their own walls. Only after all these walls were built did the state of Qin conquer the others and unite. China around 200 BC, then the Emperor of Qin, Emperor Qin Shi Huang, connected all the walls together and extended them across the northern borders of his empire. He wanted to protect China from nomadic tribes from the north and the west. So it's true that the Great Wall was built to keep the Mongols out, but not in the way most people think. Instead of being built during the Mongol Empire, it was built hundreds of years before the empire was even established. Number 9. To keep the Chinese in. No. 8. To keep bandits and robbers out. 7. To stop runaway slaves. The Great Wall of China has a long history, spanning over 2,000 years. To protect the northern borders. Number 4. To keep the Chinese customs and culture in. 3. To protect the Silk Road. The Silk Road was a network of trade routes that connected China to the outside world. No. 2. To keep the western regions in line. Number 1. To protect the capital. The Great Wall of China was also built to protect the capital city. Thanks for watching.